Hi everyone, Kelvin here from London. Going to do a thing today. I'm going to tell you all about the mad, sometimes brilliant, sometimes crazy experiments I've done with hi-fi over the years, trying to make things sound better and trying to discover things and just being a very curious person about sound. So we'll do speakers, amps, and at the end the ultimate tweaking machine, the turntable, because turntables are so sensitive. There's so much you can do. Everything has an effect, with a turntable, even the surface it sits on, because it's all micro physics. Anyway, I'll tell you a few things I've done with speakers first, and then we'll go to amps and turntables. Now, what I used to do, and I've done it so you don't have to, but what I used to do was take the tweeter out because I was interested in the tweeter positioning. Is this making a difference? What difference does it make left, off center, and also back, and also further away from the driver? So I thought I need to know this. So I'd take that tweeter out, extend the wire, put a bit of wood over there, and then I could have, my tweeters up here, this one is gone. And so I would start experimenting with it being over here, in the center. I mean, to get it into the right orientation again, so I could sort of do my experiment good, I could turn this speaker on its side and put that there, yeah? So I'm replicating this, and then I just move it so I'd hear what it sounded like on the diagonal. But and back like this. So what did I discover? I discovered there's not much in it, but there is something in it. If I was to try and articulate it quickly, I would say the offset tweeter like this, this over here, which, JBL are still doing to this day. And it was most common. It was actually the norm, say, in the early 70s. Doing that, it probably did give you a bit more space. It sort of allowed it stopped things getting cramped. It had more space, but maybe you could say it didn't make your stereo image perfectly good. But in a way, it's sort of, maybe that's part of the vintage sound, the big spacious sound. I mean, to this day, the vertical thing, I think it looks better, and I think you can sell that to people. I don't know, the offset tweeter kind of looks like an old-fashioned idea. It doesn't look like a very pure science. But anyway, those are the experiments I did. And then I tried it further back and further away. When you're further back there, you're lining up the sort of that with that. And you'll see that on some expensive speakers, they do that. I think they call it phase linear, but I can't really remember that working too good, mostly because I think I'm getting reflections off the top surface. But that's one thing I used to try. Other things I would try, hang on a sec. Messing around with the gasket. The gasket, I mean the bit here, so when this speaker comes out, it's bedded in with most times stuff like felt or similar to felt, sometimes cardboard. Sometimes when you take old speakers out, that all has degenerated and is messed up and it's not nice anymore and it's all bumpy. So you might kind of want to replace it. But what I found when I tried all things like blue tack, plasticine, felt, what I want to say is be careful with this because you will get differences. You put blue tack in there or plasticine, you might think, oh, that's good. Ultimately, because I did all this experimenting, I landed up back with what they were using, which were probably something like felt or a thin bit of cardboard. But, different, you will notice differences. But, what I want to say is be careful. Different isn't always better. And that's what takes time, and a sort of serious scientific approach to experimenting, playing the same song, getting to know that song exactly how it should sound. So yeah, I used to do that, and also messing around with wadding. If you're going to go loud, you want the wadding probably as it's intended. If you play real quiet, sometimes you can take some of the wadding out and it will give you a bit more life. But you know, you can play around with them in different materials, wool, that fiberglass stuff, foam. They'll all do something, you know, it's all a player. Another thing that I used to do, bypass the terminals on the back. Yeah. And they got these speaker plugs and gold plated. The best plug is no plug. No plug is better. Every plug has to be something soldered onto it and soldered on the other side. If you go straight through, bypass those plugs on the back, connect your wires to your crossover, or even just cut the wires on the crossover, twiddle them together, put some tape around it so they don't touch. I mean, you've got a perfect connection there. Bypassing plugs is a winner. Got to make sure you're not, you know, you haven't left any air gaps where your wire comes in or whatever you're doing. But that is a win. It's a win-win, bypassing a plug. The best plug is no plug. Okay, let's do, so not so much you can tweak around with amplifiers that you can meddle with as a beginner or as an amateur, you know, apart from recapping and all that kind of stuff. But something I used to do, which, you know, if I would do this today, if I had just one system, which is again bypassing these terminals. So like these speaker terminals here, let me get the camera in, I'll show you. So have a look at that Sansui amp. It's one of my favorite amps, by the way. But let's look at those speaker terminals there, because you know you've got your nice cables probably coming in the back here, and then what do you have? You know, you have a little strip of metal, and then this is soldered on. Yeah. Now, so all I would do was desolder that, or really, if you can't even solder, you could cut this here. Just expose the thread and twiddle it together. You know, get your speaker terminal, twiddle it together, put some tape over it. Make sure nothing touches. Nothing must touch. Don't get anywhere near this damn transformer. Don't have the power on. Be careful. But bypassing plugs is great. You know, you've got lovely cables coming in, and then you've got this little strip of metal. I mean, admittedly, it's very short, but you know, it can't be good. And you can do that also on your, you know, your inputs, CD, phono. Over here, there's my inputs. But I could get at them. I'd have to get this plate off, which screws in down there. But, you know, that's a harder thing to do. But, you know, bypassing plugs is a winner. You know, they're not going to tell you about bypassing plugs in hi-fi magazines, because there's nothing you can buy. It's not a product. It's bypassing the products. So they don't really advertise that kind of stuff too much. It's a win-win. You're letting more signal through. It's more pure. Less stuff getting in the way. It's just a winner, that is. The other thing I used to do, which you mustn't do, is literally, and I only did this, I'm only telling you this so you don't do it, or so as you know, that I would get headphones, cut the plug off, and wire those headphones direct to the speaker terminals. Now that's a 50-watt amp. I wouldn't do it with a 50-watt amp. I used to do it with like a 15-watt amp or a 12-watt amp, which is still way too powerful. And you can blow those headphones up no problem, very quickly, with the slightest tweak on the volume knob. Yes. But I did do it. It did work. It made a huge sound. You know, like the voice in the headphones would be 2 or 3 times bigger than it ordinarily would. But it's not made to do this at all. You've got to start with your volume knob down low. I'd even start with the bass on 0, because bass is the thing that will destroy that cone or the dome in your headphones in a flash. So don't try this. Don't try this. But anyway, I'm just telling you all the things I've done. And in all this experimenting, it kind of just, it's always a learning experience. You learn things along the way, about materials and parameters. I don't know. But you know, that's how I learned a lot of the stuff that I know, by trying all kinds of crazy things. Talking of crazy things, let's go on to turntables now, because there's some really crazy stuff that I've done, or me and my friends have done in the past, some of which is actually very good, and some of it, again, highly dangerous. Okay. So, turntables. I'll start with the best thing, the most outrageous thing. A mat made of oil. I am totally serious. We got very obsessed as I was a teenager. My friend Chris, he was he had a workshop in his house. He was a very, very practical person, even at a young age. And we got involved in like a mat was very important. And there was a lot of terrible mats on turntables, 70s and 80s, ridges with air gaps underneath. So what he did was he got 2 bits of polythene, little circle in the middle for where like the 45 would go, kind of welded them with heat around. And I mean, I didn't see him do this, but I saw it and I had it. He actually sold it to me. It was a mat made of oil, and it was about 6 mil, 5-6 mil, 1/4 inch thick, brown engine oil he put in it. This sounded great. It really sounded great, because you've got oil. That's going to be a fantastic material for, absorbing sound and vibration. Probably better than anything. And, this mat only lasted a week before the oil started to penetrate through the polythene and was making your records oily, so you couldn't use it anymore. And obviously it's highly dangerous. If it was to burst, it'd just destroy your turntable and have oil everywhere. So, but that's what we did, or that's what he made it, and he sold it to me, and it sounded great. Now, the other thing about turntable mats that I've done before, and you can try this just as a pure experiment, a turntable mat made of newspaper. Now, I just put this in the way of a story. I was at a friend's house. This has been the 80s, late 80s. He had a turntable and he had one of these nasty mats with lots of ridges and lots of air gaps underneath. I said, look, you can really improve on this mat. And he said, oh, I don't think so, because, it's made that way. So I made a mat there and then in his house. Des, if you're watching, yeah, his name's Des, long time ago. So I made the mat there and then in his house. 6 pieces of newspaper. And newspaper, the reason this is good is you've got 6 levels of fluffy paper. That again is a great sound deadener. I mean, it's probably similar to felt, but it is very good. It's no good in the long term because it keeps lifting up and sticking to your records and all that stuff. But if you want to do that as an experiment, it is a great mat sound-wise. And if it was practical, I'd still use it today because it's very, very good. Anyway, I did that at his house. And even I was shocked at what a big deal it was. Just a total game changer compared to a very sort of nasty ridged mat with lots of air underneath it. And, everyone in the room was going, oh, this was transparently obvious to Des and his girlfriend at the time. So that's one of the things I've done with turntables. What else? The other thing I want to say, which is a big deal, and I think I'm going to get a lot of trouble for. Now, I've used Thoron's turntables a lot. I've had other turntables, Pioneer, Garage, Sansui, all sorts really. But anyway, look, that's the spindle of a Thoron's. Can you see that? Is that coming out good? It's very similar to a Lin Sondek. I mean, in basic structure, they're, different companies, but it works in the same way. This is Lin Black Oil. I have tried this. I found it really not good. I use in the spindles of all my turntables, certainly all my Thorens and any other turntable, I will put in it car engine oil. High grade, thinner one, but good oil. You know, if you've got a nice car like a Mercedes, just get a couple of blobs of that oil, put it on here. You know, that oil is high-tech stuff. It's high-tech. You know, it works from freezing cold to really hot. It costs a lot of money, that oil. This costs £10. When I put that in to this Thorens 150, honestly, I thought something had gone wrong and I'd wired something, or I was dragging, you know, the arm wasn't functioning properly. This doesn't sound good at all. I mean, this is just the truth of the matter. So I'm using engine oil on my turntable. I'm not saying you should do it and that every turntable this will work for. But that's what I do, certainly in my Thorens turntables, all the ones I've had. And I found it to be a big winner. Okay, what else with turntables? You can put all kinds of sound deadening, blue tack underneath, you know, the whole thing with turntables. It's super sensitive. It's minute. What is going on with that stylus going along is minute. So everything matters. You know, if it's on marble, I had a glass shelf. I swear you could hear this glass shelf. It just had an effect. So to me, heavier shelves are really the thing you want. Things like granite or even heavy wood. But an isolation, you know, don't put it on it's got to be on the wall. And it wants to be on a brick wall, attached to a brick wall. It doesn't want to be on a rack even, because that rack is attached to the floor and people walk on the floor and it all bounces around. So to me, a turntable should be on a wall on a very rigid, solid, heavy surface. And you can damp all kinds of bits of your turntable. Other little thing I would say, these little wires that run between the cartridge and the head shell, make sure those things are on tight. They're not loose. See, that one is a bit loose. So I would squeeze that a tiny bit with a pliers, not whilst it's on, whilst it's off, and then push it back in. You know, you want those tight. And if you have a long gap between these two, you don't want these wires to be bouncing around. I've actually got a little bit of cotton and made a noose and tightened them up so they don't move. You know, you want rigidity with turntables. Yeah, okay. Actually, other thing I've tried, which is kind of something beginners will try, is, you know, unscrew this cartridge a little bit, put different materials underneath, blue tack, cardboard, thin paper. What you will find is you'll find very big differences, and then probably ultimately you find it's all pointless. But you know, I'm just telling you everything I've done. So yeah, I put soft materials between there and there just to bed it in, and you will get big differences, but it'll be probably ultimately detrimental. Yeah, everything rigid. You want everything rigid on a turntable. Is that it? Yeah, even taking the bottom off a turntable to stop it sort of becoming a vibrate, you know, a box like a guitar. That can work, but then you will kind of draw dust into the bottom. I've hung turntables on chains from the ceiling. I've tried all these things, anything to make things sound better. Turntables really want to be level. That is so much more important than anyone imagines. You think, how can this be? It's a tiny bit unlevel. It matters, and that arm is at the right horizontal. You know, it's perfectly perpendicular to the, you know, the playing surface. That, you know, the platter. It doesn't want to be up or down. It wants to be bang on if you can do it. If your arm doesn't move and your arm is like that, you can actually pack up the platter. I would put like 2 mats, or a mat and a vinyl record and another mat to get it flat. You want that perfectly flat. I mean, you can really only do that by eye. It's kind of hard to do it in any other way, but you can pretty much see it, you know. So yeah, all these mad things I've done. Things that I want to do still is put some concrete, get a speaker and set it in concrete just to see what that will do. I've got a feeling it won't be nice. I've got a feeling it will be dead. But that's sort of probably the one outstanding experiment that I haven't tried. Okay, those are the mad things I've done, so you don't have to. Please like and subscribe if you want to on this channel, and plenty of other videos you'll see on the channel. Okay, bye for now.